You need a long-term and a short-term strategy.
Yeah.
You need quick wins to win some clients, but have a long-term approach to winning, building some relationships with some key people who know lots of your ideal clients. Help the hell out of them, and they'll help you back.
Welcome back to the podcast. I have another guest with me with fear and trepidation because he has no idea what's coming next. So welcome back to the podcast. I've got Jamie, founder of Circle Networks with me. Jamie, thank you for being brave.
Well, suddenly I feel nervous.
Well, a lot of people go, so what's the script like? And I said, the new thing is I give you an overview, but we don't know where it's going to go, right? We could end up, getting cancelled or something. Who knows? So before we get into talking about all the things you're doing, helping people grow their businesses and meet new potential customers, before we talk about all that stuff, what are you drinking, Jamie?
So I felt a bit of pressure about this. So I've brought out my best gin. So this was a present off a friend of mine, Ailsa Stinson. Ava gin. You can't buy this in shops, and I'm not surprised. It's a Scottish gin. It's Navy strength, and it's 57% proof.
Okay, so I've just invented a new bit. You have to have 3 drinks whilst we do the podcast.
Well, so I've ordered a double gin and tonic. So I'm on a double, but it's gone down quite quickly. Cheers. And then I brought a backup plan because I know that I'll probably neck it before we finish. So I brought a can of Batch 95, which a friend of mine brews, and Batch is short for Sand Batch where I live. The 95 means that it's not too bad for me because there's only 95 calories in it, and it tastes very nice.
I know Sand Batch for only one reason.
The services.
Yeah.
You're not the first to say that.
Anyway, before people get lost in what the hell this is about. So, Jamie, you founded Circle Networks and you've been all over everywhere building this. You got 40 plus network groups, and you've got some across the world, but a big chunk of that is in the UK. Do you want to just tell us about, first off, why did you start that and what's it all about?
Okay, so I think we can all remember going into lockdown back in 2020. And I was always an in-person networking event. I'd just taken my coaching onto Zoom because I'd started working further afield. And up until that point, I'd only ever worked with people that were an hour's radius where I lived. Anyway, in-person networking was always my thing. Then lockdown hit and I hated online networking. Everybody just took the same big room format, one big Zoom room, and you were on mute for 89 of the 90 minutes of the event, and no one was paying any attention. No one listened. Everyone was messing about with WhatsApp under the screen. So I quit. I did 4 months of online networking and quit. And then a friend of mine, Greg, said to me, you know that in-person event that you used to run yourself? Why don't you resurrect that? And I was like, that format would really work because it was conversational. And in a friend's restaurant, I used to run this event where we'd sit people on tables of 4, let them have conversations with each other and interact rather than pitch. And then I'd make everybody stand up and move around. Zoom's so much easier because you just press a button and rejig the rooms. So there's no moving around. So that was how I came up with the idea for it. But originally I was only ever going to run one event just for me to generate leads and for my clients. And then 3 people said, can we run a group? And we started developing the license model for it.
That's pretty cool. And, we're kind of, we talked about this the other day, actually, about we're kind of both doing the same thing in a different format. Yeah. And I thought that was really interesting. But I mean, I've been to some networking, right? And I think you know this story of being pressured to buy somebody's book. I don't know if I've ever told you about this. And I think the same with me on LinkedIn and the same with networking. There's a way to do it that's kind of works and there's a way that really doesn't work. What are some of the things that like you see people kind of messing up with networking?
Oh,
The bad stuff first. Let's do
this
the
is
bad
gonna be
and
a
the
long.
funny
This is
stuff.
gonna be a long episode. This. So the first thing that I always say to people is, put your hand up if you've come here to promote your business. Everyone puts their hands up. Put your hand if you come here to find clients. Everyone puts their hands up. Put your hand up if you've come to be someone else's client. Tumbleweed.
Mhm.
Nobody. Occasionally, one person books the trend, but generally, 100% of people do not put their hand up. No one goes networking to buy anything.
Mhm.
And then I explain that's the problem. Everyone goes networking to sell, but no one's there to buy. That's why you don't get results. It's the equivalent of on LinkedIn, connect and then pitch.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. So I see a lot of people go networking. Oh my God, I need a client this week. I know I'll go networking. Someone will become my client. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Occasionally, somebody might. And there was a guy that wrote a book called Chet Holmes, The Ultimate Sales Machine. It's about 20 years old now. And he did some research that said at any moment in time, 97% of people are not
Mhm.
interested in buying your thing today. So only 3% are. So that means you've got to speak to 100 people and 3% might be interested. Doesn't mean they're going to buy from you. They just might be interested in buying your thing today.
They're in the market.
Yeah. So I say that everyone goes networking to pitch, not to build relationships. And then they're too broad. Hi, I'm Jamie. I'm a coach. This week I'm looking for an introduction to anyone who needs coaching because I need a client, please. So if you could introduce me to anyone, and I stop them and I say, really? Do you want anyone? Yeah, yeah. What about the people that are a pain in the backside? Well, no, I don't want to speak to them. What about the ones with no money? Well, obviously I don't want to speak to them. And what about the ones that are really demanding and hard work and never appreciate what well, I don't want to speak to them. I said, we've just ruled out a lot of people there. You just
Mhm.
said you want to speak to anyone. So in the same way that you teach people to get very specific on LinkedIn and search for a certain phrase using LinkedIn search functionality, I teach people to be specific in that way so that in someone's head when I'm listening, so if I say to you, right, I'm looking for an introduction to a graphic designer who might work with coaches, one that you like, one who you know who goes networking, and I might add a few more bits to it, but I'm helping you start filtering all the connections you've got,
Mhm.
hopefully to get to one person. And this is what I say to people. When you're networking, you want to be speaking so that somebody can just filter everybody down to, oh, I know that. I know who to introduce you to.
Yeah, yeah.
And if it's just one person, that's easy to do after the event, isn't it?
Mm.
I've just got to ring one person to introduce them to Dean. I can do that.
Mm. I think I see the same thing, that same problem on LinkedIn, where because there's a billion people on there, it feels like, wow, I can just get to anybody. And you can. The problem is they're not interested in buying unless they immediately understand what benefit it will be for them. So, like, you know, we're both business owners, but we might have different challenges at different points. We might have the same problem, but have a preference about how we solve it. And then I see this all the time. Yeah, I'm a executive coach. That's the best one. On what? That's a pretty big field, right? But is there a specialism that when people see you and you can talk to them, they go, "Oh, I can frame where you sit." And I talk about it like being psychic. Imagine you've picked a group of people and picked a problem so that when you're on LinkedIn, you talk about it and they go, "Oh my God, it's like they're describing me."
Yes.
It's the easiest way to work on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And so there are some people that can't name a specific type of business. They just work
Mhm.
with people. And I said, well, you've got to get good at describing the type of people. So for
Mhm.
me, if I was doing that, I'd say I work with nice people. I've had my fair share of not nice people. I only want introductions to nice people. And people laugh, but they straight away know the ones not to introduce me to.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, so typically a good person for me is probably 35 to 55. They're ambitious. They've been running their own business for more than a couple of years and they're established. They've hit some kind of plateau or glass ceiling and they're a bit stuck and they're a bit frustrated. They're people. They're usually quite driven. Sometimes they can
Mm.
be a little bit Marmite, but that's just how they are. You scratch the surface and they're really nice people. Sometimes they can, I mean, I'm Northern, so sometimes I come across a bit abrupt. Um, they listen to podcasts, they invest in training, they probably buy business books or listen to audiobooks, and more often than not, they're dog owners. Now, that's not a mutually they don't have to tick every box on that
Yeah, yeah.
list. Usually, when I'm doing that, and I say generally, more often than not, somebody can think of one person to introduce me to.
And then you're talking like with your LinkedIn, you're talking to those people in your head, like that kind of ideal client. Your posts and what you're doing is for them, isn't it?
I've somehow worked out, probably heard other people. I've got a specific person in mind when I write a post.
Mm.
I don't name them, but I find whether that's manifestation or speaking to the right people through my content, usually that person's one of the people that comments or likes my post. And it worked. And I've done this as well. There are some people that come to me because they want to get into my network, as you will have this as well. And somebody wants, oh, can we meet? I want to pass you some referrals. So we had coffee. I passed them a referral. Then they were like, oh, can we have another coffee? You know where this is going. So this went on for a few months. I'm like, I've got nothing from this, and they've had loads of business.
Mm.
And then I just stopped it. And I wrote this post saying, at some point, you've just got to cut people loose because all they want to do is take. And I
Mm.
didn't name them, but they were the first person to send me a private message to say, was that post about me?
And you should say, oh, now you mention it. I wasn't thinking of you, but maybe you were thinking of you.
Yes. Yeah, obviously they thought it was them for them to send me a message. So sometimes I think in networking you can build relationships or think we're building relationships with the right people and they
Mm.
turn out to be the wrong ones. I use a good analogy, Dean. I say we're in the world of business dating. And in our personal lives, we don't go on one date and expect to get married, generally.
I
You'll
don't
go
know. We're living 2024 here, you know.
on. I've yet to meet that person that had one date and got married, though. Um, so in our personal lives, we'll go on a number of dates, and sometimes it doesn't work out, and then we'll find the right person and have more dates and build trust with them, and then we introduce them to our friends, and then they introduce us to their friends, and then family, and then you get married.
Mhm.
In the business sense, none of us start off in business thinking, I need more friends. We just want clients. We just want clients. If we could skip everything else and just get clients, that's what we want. No one really wants to be on LinkedIn. No one wants to go networking. If we could just have enough clients, that'd be great. But in order to get there, you've got to build some relationships with people. And from a networking sense, it's like people go networking and expect to get married on the first event. If I just met you, I mean, I've said this on the last chat that we had. We've been connected for 2.5 years and built a relationship during that time. So we've consumed each other's content. We feel like
Mm.
we know each other, and we're starting to develop that in conversation now. You've got to do that with networking. There's a process, there's a series of steps that you go through to build relationships before I'm going to feel that I know you well enough and trust you to
Mm.
introduce you to the people that pay my mortgage. That's what we're talking. That's who it like. Do you want to deal with my rubbish connections?
Yeah, it's yeah, and we do kind of lose sight of that, but it's I don't know why that is that we kind of like forget everything that we know about human nature and the way the world works when it comes to business. We kind of forget and think, I don't know, do we think we're selling to robots? Why do you think we do it?
I think, I think there's times. I mean, I've been there. When I first started going networking, I didn't really want to go. I went because someone invited me and I was looking for clients at that point. Oh, you're looking for clients? You should come networking. Come to this event with me. And I went and someone bought something from me. I was like, this is brilliant. And you hear that because that's what everybody promotes. Go
Mm.
network and get your business. Now, I don't promote it as a magic bullet. I said, build a network, there's a difference between building a network and going networking.
Mm.
So you build a network and build relationships with people. And one of our guys, Paul McGowan, just messaged me the other day. So we're recording this at the end of December. And Paul said, "When did I join Circle Networks?" I said, "It was the end of January 2023. The next message came back. "Do you want to know how much money I've made since?" I was like, "Yeah, of course I do. Like, I'm a numbers person. I love numbers."
Mm.
So he's made just over £92,000 worth of profit from networking since January. So in 23 months, he's made
Wow.
£92,000 worth of profit from our network. He was
Can't
ready
turn your
to,
nose up at that.
at the point that he joined, he was ready to quit networking forever.
So 92,000 is like a year later. Obviously, for the vast majority of people, they don't go to the first networking and, a deal lands. That's not the norm. That one thing, it's building that network. But how do you network? How do you build that network? Like, I'll give you an example, right? I'm not so good one to one. I'm actually pretty rubbish one to one. If we were having a one to one about how to use LinkedIn right now, great, right? But you walk up to me in a room to chat about anything, and I'm like,
Idle chit
I
chat,
don't know
yeah.
what to do. I
Well, so what makes Paul's story more interesting is he didn't get any business for 6 months. So he went networking for 6 months and built relationships with people, helped other people, got credibility, and then started to reap the benefits of helping other people. So there's a book that I recommend called The Go Giver, and it's kind of the fundamental of my approach to networking, that you help other people first. So I think I did a post about this the other day. A lot of people network for today,
mm,
expecting results today, rather than taking a strategic approach. Now, you and I have built that relationship through social networking. Neither of us had an agenda on that. It was just engage with each other's stuff, consume it, share it, tag other people, get to know people quite well so that you build that, and then something happens.
mm,
And I think if you go networking to sell, which is what most people are invited to do, unfortunately, you need a client come networking. There's a missing bit. You need a client if they say, "Come and learn how to network with us and build a network." That's the missing ingredient. And in some networks, they say, "We're not going to pass you a referral until you join." Sorry, we're a very special club. Um, and I'm like, if somebody stumbled in the street, I wouldn't say, "Sorry, I can't help you because you're not in the membership." You'd pick them up. And I think
yeah.
sometimes people need that help. You help an awful lot of people with their social media who aren't clients, but that builds credibility, that builds trust,
Mm.
and we can all do that in some way.
So, given that story of Paul there, and I see this on LinkedIn as well, but let me tell you what happens on LinkedIn because it's really interesting. Somebody comes on LinkedIn, learns a bit of something from somebody, tries to implement it in somebody's 2 year or 3 year journey in a week or 2 weeks or a month, struggles to do it, then goes and finds somebody else and tries to implement their 3 years of success or 2 years of success in a month, then goes and pays somebody else. How did Paul not fight that inbuilt thing within us? I see it on LinkedIn, people jumping around, uh, buying course after course after course. How did Paul not go, well, oh, that networking didn't give me sales. I'll try another networking and I'll try another group and another group and another group. How do you, like, not just the business side of it, how do you mentally kind of check out of that behavior of just jumping from thing to thing to thing?
So I think if you've got the mindset of helping other people, then it does two things. If it's perfect timing right now for this, because if someone gives you a Christmas card, you probably feel like you need to write a Christmas card and give them one back.
Mm.
Somebody surprises you with a Christmas gift, a present, you probably feel like you need to buy them one back. When we go to the pub, if you buy a round of drinks, I am definitely one of the people who buys one back. So reciprocity, it's built
Mhm.
into our DNA. Somebody helps us, we want to help them back. And that's what Paul set off to do, to just start helping other people and build relationships. One of the key things, though, he started building a team. So I think a lot of people take a shotgun approach to networking that, I don't know, they'll speak to as many people as possible, they'll go to as many events as possible. And Paul, in this particular example, the guy who invited him to come to Circle Networks, they'd been in the same networking group beforehand, but didn't know each other. They'd had one
Okay.
meeting once and never passed each other any introductions. We sat down and looked at Paul, and he's a financial advisor. This other guy, Jimmy, he's in private healthcare. They are perfect referral pattern. They deal with the same ideal client.
Mhm.
So Paul just got very good at helping Jimmy. Help Jimmy, help Jimmy, help Jimmy. Do you know what happened? Jimmy helped him back. They became really good friends along the way, to the point that they speak multiple times a week. And virtually every client that Paul speaks to, or person that Paul speaks to, he brings Jimmy up in conversation.
So that's some people listening to this will be going, Jamie, I like the sound of that. I like the sound of that. But then when they go back to their reality, trying to get into that, like there's, oh, I love that. I want to do that. But then there's how do you stay motivated? How do you, when you've got your own kind of
Well,
needs?
it's the thing. Why do we give to charity? What do we get from that?
Cynically, we get our own sense of we've done something good. So there's a reward from that.
And you get gratification from knowing that it makes us feel good, whether
Hmm.
we hand it to somebody in the street or we subscribe to something or someone posts on Facebook that they're doing something for charity. We feel like we've done our bit.
Hmm.
It makes us feel good. And there's two sides to giving. There is taking, receiving. So I can't give unless you're prepared to receive. So,
Hmm.
so I get, it makes me feel good if I've helped you. And if I go, so even if I got nothing back, it's going to make me feel good to begin with.
Hmm.
And we all want to feel good. That's why, the dopamine, we talked about this the other day. Social media is all about a dopamine hit, isn't it?
Hmm.
And if I pass you an introduction that turns into a great client, well, you're going to think that I'm great. You're going to want to do something back. So along the way, the instant hit is feeling good for helping somebody else, feeling good for doing some good. And for me, I try to get people to build a habit of passing referrals. And I think there's two types of introductions that people make. There is the reactive ones, where I might just be going through my normal week and I speak to somebody and they go, oh God, my LinkedIn's rubbish. Spent so much time on it. And I'll go, oh, let me introduce you to Dean. He's a
Hmm.
great guy. He can help you with that. That's a reactive referral. Someone just happens to say the magic words that makes me go, introduce you to Dean. Proactive referrals, and I'll give you a really good example of this. A friend of mine's been looking, he's got a couple of restaurants and he's been looking for a third location for a few years.
Yeah.
One seems to keep falling through. And my son worked in a restaurant in town last year. I knew that they weren't doing too well. And then they posted something on social media which made me think, right, these guys are ready to exit. Set up an introduction. Long story short, my friend Nagendra took over, bought a restaurant, and all he had to do was pay the rent.
Wow.
He got the brand, he got the website, got the staff, a perfect, like a business that's already running for next to nothing. That's one that I created. So
Hmm.
I'm aware of what he was looking for. It took me 2 years to find it, but then I engineered that introduction for him.
Mm.
So we can create proactive referrals where if I know what you're looking for, and I might just find somebody who they're struggling right now, and I'm like, have you thought about social media? Well, yeah, I've tried it, but it doesn't work. But what if I knew somebody and I told them a story about a client that you'd worked with, and then I go right and to work with Dean costs X thousand pounds, but here's some examples of people that have had it and the results that they've got. Have you got that money? Yeah. Would you be prepared to have a conversation with Dean about it? Yeah. And if you give me your meeting booking link and I get that meeting in your diary and you've done nothing at this point, and then I just ring you and say, Dean, I've booked this in. This is the person. I've explained what it costs. They've got the money in the bank. It's up to you to convert them now. That's a
Yeah.
really good referral. So that's what I teach people to do. And when they start doing that, then they start receiving it.
It's counterintuitive though, isn't it? Because there's no guarantee. I mean, I have a little giggle like um we'll talk about guarantees for a minute. Some people will ask me, can I guarantee results on social media?
You can't.
Because this other place is offering me a guarantee. And I'm like, there's no there's no guarantee for it. Like what like what I can guarantee other people's decisions.
So I had someone come along and we offer a 2 week free trial. There's no
Mhm,
pressure. Come and try it, see what you think. You can do as much as you want. Um, Lady called Wendy. She's based out in Thailand. She's from the UK. Came, tried it. She said, "I'm going to join. I got 2 clients while I was on my free trial." I'm like, "That's brilliant." It's like, if only I could offer that. Have a free
yeah.
trial and
That
get
would
a
be
couple
great,
of
wouldn't it?
clients. Like, I'd be inundated with business. So it comes down to people. We're in the process business. So I've got a
Mhm,
process or a strategy or a system that works, but it relies on you being good at what you do and being able to turn a lead into a client.
mm,
And that part
yeah,
of it's out of our control to some extent.
yeah, yeah. If you have a conversation, I can get. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday in the US, and I said, I can get you to the point where you're having a conversation with the right people, but that last mile of you explaining what you do and showing you can solve them and the fit, I can't control that bit.
Yeah. We
So
can
just think, go on.
we can teach people though. And
Mhm,
so I always say, you're familiar with that thing, like when we point the finger of blame, there's one going up, there's one pointing, and there's three pointing back at us. If you're not getting the introductions that you want, it's your fault.
mhm,
It sounds really harsh. So I have to caveat that to sort of say, like, I don't mean to be really mean, but generally it's down to you, not them. Either you're not being clear on what you're looking for, or you're speaking to
mhm.
the wrong people. And it's usually the first one.
Do you know what? That's probably the same thing I would say to people about LinkedIn. They're not being clear on what they want or what they're selling, and they don't understand who they're selling it to. Because that lack of clarity then translates into everything you do. Whatever emails, posts, messages, conversations. It's just like, oh yeah, you're a coach. Okay.
Yeah.
No, oh yeah, I can help people where they've got a really good business, but they keep second guessing themselves and they keep putting decisions off and they keep avoiding opportunities because they're afraid to lose what they've got. So I help those people. And then oh, wow, I know somebody like that. You could help them. There's no kind of context to help you see, can I spot a person like that?
So one of the things that I like is with, don't get me wrong, there is nothing will replace face-to-face meetings, in-person events with people. But I can be much more efficient with online stuff because there's just no travel involved. For people who are new to networking in particular, I remember the first time I went to an in-person networking event, and the brief was, you come along, you get 60 seconds, you have to stand up when it gets to your turn. I was like, that's fine. I can read out what I'm asking. No, you can't have a piece of paper. You can't have a script. I was like, oh, that's a bit of pressure. And then they give a prize for the best presentation as well. I was like, well, no pressure then. Online, we can have, if you've got two screens, you can have side by side on the screen what it is you need to say. No
Mm-hmm.
one needs to know. You can have a bit of paper. You can have some bullet points, like you know, just below camera level. You can have notes on your phone. You can have. It's so much less intimidating doing
Mm-hmm.
online networking, I find. And once you learn the right skills, you can build brilliant rapport with people.
Yeah.
It's
So
but
just,
it's not quite as good as, but it's good enough. Sorry, and the last bit. So when you're if you're at an in-person networking event, so if you just imagine it's in a U shape generally, And so the only people you can see is half the room that's on the opposite side to you. You can't even see the people to your left and your right when you're doing your pitch. When you're doing online networking, you are only an arm's length away from the camera, so you've
Mhm.
got a much better view of everyone's face and their reactions. And here's one of the things that I say. So I think we live in a distracted world. It's very easy for people to have other screens up, pop-ups, their phone. And I say, right, just give me your attention for the next 4 minutes. We have 4 minutes at our events. Just give me your attention for the next 4 minutes. Just put your phone down, put your pen down, and just listen to what I'm saying. Do you know what? You can just hear that do as everyone's putting stuff down, and then they look at the screen, and then I'll get to a certain point and I'll go, right. As I'm talking, I just want you to think of one or two people that you can introduce me to, and then write their names down. And then what do you see? Their head goes down, and you see the top of their head. There's a difference when someone, and I explain, this is me. This is me picking up my phone, and you just see someone's
And then
eyes glance
do you
down.
go, can you pass, right? Is it put the names down, then at the side, put their phone numbers, now pass me the sheets?
That would be the ideal thing. I mean, it's that would, but you can see if the we've got to take responsibility of it, so that effectively what they're doing, they're putting when they start writing down, they're putting their hand up to say, "I can introduce you to somebody."
Mm,
We come off out of a networking event, off a networking event, people forget.
mm.
You talk about what was it? Bite-sized content.
Sound bites,
So
LinkedIn, social media sound bites.
it applies to everything, doesn't it? Everyone's got goldfish memory. So just because they've written down three people that they can introduce you to, you've got to take responsibility to get in touch with that and say, Dean, you know, when I said write down three names, it looked like you were writing someone's name down. Can I help you with that? Tell them, can I tell you what to say to introduce me? Very rare that I see anyone do that. But those that do, they
Mm.
get the referrals, they get the clients.
But do you think, I mean, I want to talk about something else in a second, but do you think people hesitate to do that because they don't want to feel pushy?
Oh, no, do you know what? No, no, it's just not even thought of. It's just
They just don't think about it.
I just don't think about it. But here's the other thing. I've networked for a long time. No one's ever come to me and said, Jamie, I had a dream introduction, but I messed it up when I spoke to them. No one's ever said that to me. Ever.
Mm.
So I think sometimes people go, and let's say I go away and I speak to someone, they go, oh, my LinkedIn's rubbish. And I go, oh, you should speak to Dean. How does he work? I don't know. He's a really nice guy though. Yeah, I already know some nice people. What does he charge? I don't know that either. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
all right, thanks. I'm all right, thanks. Well, it doesn't sound like like just because he's a nice guy, I don't want to speak to him.
Yeah.
I don't then come back to you and then go, Dean, this guy is loaded. He'd make a dream client, but I completely messed up the introduction. I'm really sorry. No one does. We don't want to look stupid, do we? None of us want to
No.
look stupid. And if it happens, we just want to wipe that from our memory. So we've got to have a process to teach people how to refer us. And when we do that, and if you teach people, then they just follow that and they go, so I did that. And if I always say to people, if you can introduce me to somebody, come and ask me what to do. So there's two things. One, I actually know that someone's looking out for me and want to do something. Two, I can give them the best chance of turning that into a meeting. Most people don't do that. They just go, do you know what? We'll end this now. But I say, if you were to recruit a salesperson, you've got salespeople, Dean, haven't you?
Yeah.
How much time do you spend training your salespeople?
That's on our horizon for 2025, actually. So we're going to get some outside people in just to do some of that. But yeah, we should do more, really.
But
I think every business should do more. I think
hours,
I think the danger though with training is it just becomes a one hit, and that's what we've done that internally sometimes.
but let's say it's a week that
Mm.
you might spend training someone. And yet people go networking and do their 60-second pitch and expect someone to go away and be a salesperson on their behalf. And yet if they recruited a salesperson, they'd spend a week or two, then they'd pull them back in. What are you struggling with? How can I help
Mm.
you? They'd give them a toolkit. Here's the tools. Here's how to handle objections. Here's
Mhm.
what the first step is. And we go networking and expect people to be the best salespeople for us with no training.
Mhm.
Our responsibility is to train people how to help us.
Yeah. So here's going to be the difficult question. How, is there a moment you've had where it's felt like existential business and you just what it's like, am I going to get through this or am I not? Have you got a story you can share and how you got through it?
Yeah. So when I very first started networking, I was working on a project and it was going to be working with a big client. And I hadn't done any other prospecting, business development stuff for a while. The week that it was due to start, and this was I think it was a 40 grand a year client that was going to pay monthly, they pulled the plug on it. I had all my eggs in that basket.
Mm,
So then someone said to me, "Oh, you should come to this breakfast networking event." And I was like, "I really do not want to do this, but needs must." And I went along and I picked up a client. And then I won some smaller bits of work. I won some smaller bits of work. And it felt frustrating because at the time I just took anyone.
mm,
You've got money, you've got pulls, you can be a client. And we've all been there and we take
mm,
clients on for the wrong reason. And that was the frustrating part. And I could do that. I could win clients. We had at the time we were creating a lot of video content for people when not many people were. I was charging too low. So it was a
mm,
very easy decision. But people would come for one video. So I'd do one and then they'd be like, "Well, you've spent the money." And then I changed it to more of a subscription service where we would go to them once, but film enough content for 3 or 4 videos and then drip
mm,
that out over the next few months. It took me a year to learn that from networking. So I had to change my offer
mm,
to get the right kind of clients. I could get clients straight away, but they weren't the right ones.
mm,
So still, it came back to me not doing the right stuff. And I had to sit a training course. So my first year of proper networking, I was just a typical man. I don't need any training. I don't need to read the manual. I can speak,
mm,
and I've got the wrong kind of clients. Then I set a training course, and this is the stuff that I help people with now, where I take people through a process, and I got clear on what it was that I wanted, like you would with your, who's the ideal client you want to deal with, and a typical client maybe would have spent 3.5 grand a year in the past, and I won a 45 grand client within 3 months.
mm.
So it was me that was the problem. And when I learned what I needed to do and applied it consistently, then I started getting the right kind of clients. But it was a long year learning.
And it can be frustrating. I mean, I'll give you my scenario. My business partner was my best man. And I had a sales background, but I was more on the marketing and he was heavily the salesperson. And he decided he was going to go it alone without me and made all these plans that I wasn't aware of. So I'm working around in the background doing my thing. There's another business being built. And it's like, why are we spending so much trying to go to these things and do these things? And nothing seems to be converting,
Wow.
but it was converting just somewhere else. So eventually the split happened and we went from a lot of him being, he was a great salesman. Some people would say he wasn't a great salesman in the end because he was very persuasive, shall we say. Um, we went to a position where a lot of the clients we did have were already lined up to leave with him. So I had this kind of, I had leased a build, I sold my house. We got married and sold a house to invest in the business, leased a big building, employed a lot of people, all this kind of stuff. And then he'd gone with the
Wow.
clients.
I can.
That's how Maverick was born.
Wow. So I started Circle Networks during lockdown
Mm-hmm.
after having just split up with my wife. and I left the family home, and I was paying all the mortgage and all the bills on that, and renting a house when lockdown hit, and all my video work stopped on that day. That was when I needed to make networking work, and it
Wow.
didn't happen overnight. It never does. Uh, It's You're familiar with the analogy, dig your well before you're thirsty.
Yeah.
Most people wait until they need clients before they go networking.
Yeah. And then they need the urgency, the craziness. Now, 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 now.
Dean, I need some clients now. What can you do for me?
And I think we'll both agree, Jamie. People who are in that position where they need saving are basically the worst clients.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
It's the
there's like moral hazard with taking them on as well. Like you want to help them, but you feel responsible for them getting a result at breakneck speed that's almost impossible.
it's like we want the people who want a PT. So I'm prepared to invest in a personal trainer. I don't want a cheap gym. I want a personal trainer because I want to live the next 30 years of my life to be really fit and healthy and active. Compared to someone that's riddled with illness and unhealthiness, if that's a phrase, and they're in the operating room for life saving surgery, isn't it? Those are the two opposites.
Yeah,
We want to be the PTs helping the people
yeah.
with the right attitude at the right time, not in theatre trying to save someone's life.
Mm. So let's bring it up a bit before we wrap up. What's some of the most funny stories you've had from being in business, whether it be embarrassing, lessons learned, but in a funny way? Is there anything that's ever happened to you that you think, oh my God, I can't believe that happened?
So in my last job, I worked for this PLC, a FTSE 250 company, and they were a mail order group of companies, and they bought Clean Easy, the network marketing business, out of
I've done Clean
administration.
Easy. I've done
Oh, right.
Clean Easy.
So I was 33 at the time, working for the CEO, shadowing him, and they went, right, we're buying Clean Easy, and you're going to take it over, Jamie, and we're going to move it from Bristol to Accrington. I was like, really, Clean Easy, and dropped me into it. The it's an incentive. It just doesn't exist anymore. After I left, they sold it. Some Americans ran it into the ground, but it's an incentive based thing. So they would put on these big trips, and everybody wanted to speak on stage.
Mm-hmm.
I had never liked speaking, but they made it look so easy. These guys had built businesses based on being good public
Mm-hmm.
speakers. And I'm around all these, and this is in the first 6 months, and we were out in Cannes, and there was 400, no, 400, 200 people at this event. And then they went, so do you want to go up on stage? I was like, yeah, yeah. So with no prep, none of them had scripts. They just went up and spoke, and I absolutely died on my ass. That was a lesson to me. They made it look so easy because they practiced so much, not just what they were saying at that event, but over the years of public
Mm-hmm.
speaking. And that was a wake up call for me that just because someone makes something look easy doesn't mean that you can just do it.
It's a skill to make something look effortless.
They could do it.
Well, I can remember I did when I was in my where I was in my 20s. I was working, and my son, who's 18, was wasn't born, but he was. We were pregnant, and I needed extra money, and I did Clean Easy door to door. And there was this saying, there was this couple, Mike and Jean, and
Oh
they
yeah,
lived.
Wellington.
Yeah, yeah, Mike and Jean. Yeah, small world, right?
Yeah.
And Jean would always say, "You've got to get your books out. You've got to get your books out." Right. And that's a saying I say in the office now. Even then, it was like, if you don't put your books out, you're not going to make any sales. And yeah, it was, pissing it down, and I'd be putting my Clean Easy catalogs out and all that kind of stuff. But, I kind of look back on it and go, it was a good experience. It was a little bit crazy, but Mike and Jean in Warrington, yeah, it's like, and they won a BMW one year, I think it was. And I
I
was like,
I remember, like, so it was 19. No, 2006 we bought it, and I went to this conference at the NEC. So we used to run these events, and
Mm,
I ended up having to speak on stage in 5,000 people at a time. I soon overcame my fear of speaking, but I worked out how I could do it. But I remember the first one I went to. I was sat in the audience, and this guy comes on stage, and I'm there like stressed out. I've got the weight of the world on my shoulders. We bought this company. We're having to relocate it. There's all this stuff, challenges that go with buying a business out of acquisition and stuff. And someone comes on. Rob Foster came on stage, and he was telling this story, and it was a story-driven business. He had a Rolls Royce, he had a Lamborghini, he had a Hummer, he had this custom Harley Davidson, and then he went to Florida, and he just happened to his Florida holiday home, happened to pop in for a T-shirt into the Harley store out there, and they had the same custom model that he had in the UK, so he bought it, and I'm like, God, they got no pressure, no boss,
mm,
no, like they can take a month off, and I'm like, here's me with all this pressure and stress and stuff, and I was like,
mm,
I'm in the wrong job. It took me 7 years of supporting and encouraging other people to run their own business before I started myself.
mm. Yeah.
Um, the another embarrassing moment for me. I'm a little bit competitive, and my other half reminded me of this the other day. We went to some challenge thing where there was a climbing wall and nobody could get to the top of this climbing wall. And I'm looking, I'm going, it doesn't look that hard. And I made it my mission to get to the top, and I pretty much flew up it. But along the way, the last stretch, as I'm reaching my leg up, split my jeans at the top with everyone looking up at me. So yeah, I
Wow.
that kind of stuff. I'll just do stuff like that all the time.
So I'll tell you one story about my Clean Easy that people in the office know. Back in I was doing Clean Easy 2005, 2006. So around the time European Home Retail or whatever it's
Yeah,
called, the
that was when
change.
we
Yeah.
bought it when EHR went into administration.
Yeah. Yeah. So round about that time, I'm doing it. And back then, you'll remember the trend was baggy jeans and hoodies. Yeah. Right. So I'm doing my books, and somebody hadn't put their books out, and I knocked on the door to collect the book. And the woman opened the door and said, "We don't give to the homeless," on the door, and slammed it. And then I thought, I need to sort my fashion out.
But so everybody at that point when we bought it would act like a secret agent. There was no branding, there was no brand pride. It was
Mm,
like I'm doing this, and you'll relate to this. They all the we used to teach people at the time that walk out your front door, turn left or right, put a catalogue through a door. People
mm.
would drive to the other side of town to do it in secret. They drive to the posh part of town to do stuff. But
I
the
did
best
that.
it works on every street though. And the analogy for you is on LinkedIn, and we talked about this the other day, everybody wants new connections. The new connections are going to be better, aren't they?
Mm, mm.
The new connections are going to be better. They're going to be clients. The ones that I've got, they haven't approached me to buy anything. It's the
If
new ones that I need.
if you haven't found a way to convert people you've already got, what makes you think you'll convert the people you're about to get?
Yeah. Why is a new network? I mean, don't get me wrong, I want everyone to come join my network, but why is
Yeah.
a new network going to be better than the one that you're currently in?
Yeah. Jamie, we could go on for hours, but I think, I think we're both on the same page that business is done out of relationships.
Yeah.
And if you don't have them, then you're constantly going to be on this transactional, I need another client, I need another client.
Yeah. People are great, right? We've just got to relax into the. Don't get me wrong. You need a long term and a short term strategy.
Yeah.
You need quick wins to win some clients, but have a long term approach to winning, building some relationships with some key people who know lots of your ideal clients. Help the hell out of them, and they'll help you back. The more that you help them, the quicker they'll help you back. So it can be a fast term approach as well.
I learned that lesson as a child because I used to go to church as a child, and it was called the sowing and reaping. You
Yes.
reap what you sow. And it's a religious phrase, but it kind of plays out in life. It's how life works.
Yeah.
It's not scientific, but it's how it works. Brill.
100.
Jamie, this has been awesome. We haven't touched it.
Oh, I have.
You have to
Mine's
down the
nearly
road
gone.
now. Jamie, this is Brill. If you want to find Jamie, I'm going to put his links to his LinkedIn and his Circle Networks below or somewhere around this. So go and check it out. 2-week free trial of Circle Networking. So you can go and start building those relationships and invest in building a network, whether that's online with networking or LinkedIn or in person or wherever you want to do it. You need to build a network. So, Jamie, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.